Hi, welcome to the Connecticut Pyramid Model Modules training. We're so happy that you're interested in taking action to increase your knowledge around social emotional learning and development. My name is Deb Resnick and I work for the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood. I oversee the implementation of the pyramid model statewide. I'm going to tell you about the work we're doing in Connecticut, but at first I want to tell you that you will be guided through the modules by Lisa Swain, who is the lead pyramid trainer in Connecticut. You'll also hear from others that are involved in pyramid implementation. They all either serve as program coaches or members of the state leadership team. So there are two prongs to pyramid implementation work. There are the practices that programs implement, and then there is another prong that addresses supporting and sustaining the implementation of practices. It is important to note that the pyramid model is a framework to promote young children's social and emotional development and to address and prevent challenging behavior. It is not a curriculum. You can use pyramid with any curriculum you're using, such as Ruler, Second Step, or others. Briefly, the pyramid model is a multi-tiered system of support. It's evidence-based practices, and it is a way of thinking about social emotional development. The module training ahead will focus on the evidence-based practices. I'm going to speak about the Connecticut Pyramid Partnership, which is the leadership team in Connecticut that works to scale up and sustain pyramid implementation, the other prong from the practices. The members of the leadership team represent the agencies, programs, and businesses shown in this slide. We all work in early childhood, but with slightly different perspectives. This helps the Connecticut Pyramid Partnership Team or leadership team take a well-rounded view of the work that we do. The leadership team addresses what are called the 4 essential structures of pyramid implementation. The first being that you have a leadership team. The second is that you have a professional development network that offers training and technical assistance, that you have and oversee implementation sites, and that you collect and use data and evaluation information. This basically means that the Connecticut Pyramid Partnership means we train and we provide technical assistance. We identify and support implementation sites, and we use data to review and revise the work that we're doing. Our first chore was to create a mission and vision. You can see those here. We meet once a month for 2.5 hours, and our work groups meet between meetings. If you want more information on the leadership team, please feel free to contact me or go to the OEC website. We are about to get into the practices or module training, but first I want to give you a little overview of the history of the pyramid. In 2001, the Center on Social and Emotional Foundations was formed. It was funded by the federal government, mainly to focus on helping Head Start improve their social emotional outcomes. CEFL, as we know it, is focused on children 3 to 5. Another center was formed a few years later called the Technical Assistance Center for Social Emotional Interventions. TAXI, as it was known, was funded to focus mainly on children birth to 3. and promoted the use of evidence-based practices with children with and without disabilities. The funding for both centers ended, but they continued to promote the materials, practices, and work they now call the pyramid model. Several years after, the University of South Florida was awarded a contract to develop a national center around the pyramid work. The National Center for Pyramid Model Innovation, or NCPMI, continues the work of supporting the capacity of states and local programs to improve the social, emotional, and behavioral outcomes of young children.
Many decades of research have demonstrated that a prevention approach to emotional and behavioral concerns can yield a lifetime of benefits. The inspiration for the pyramid model comes from the public health model of promotion, prevention, and intervention. Similar to the public health model, we describe the need for universal, secondary, and tertiary interventions. At the universal level, we include the practices needed to ensure the promotion of the social development of all children. At the next level, the prevention level, we include the provision of targeted supports to children with social-emotional delays who are at risk for challenging behavior. Finally, the tertiary level of the pyramid describes the need to provide individualized and intensive interventions to the very small number of children with persistent challenges. The pyramid model is supported by an effective workforce. The goal of the National Center for Pyramid Model Innovations is to provide training and technical assistance to professionals, programs, and states in order to build the capacity to implement the pyramid model. We use implementation science and data decision-making as we guide professionals, programs, and states, and we guide them to use implementation science as they implement and scale up the pyramid model within their program. In the pyramid model, we place the provision of nurturing and responsive relationships with children, families, and colleagues as the foundation for all other practices, as well as the universal conditions that are necessary for social competence promotion and behavior guidance. The focus on relationships puts primary importance on the caregiver or teacher engaging in responsive and positive interactions with children and the development of partnerships with families. Moreover, it includes the critical importance of collaboration and teaming that is essential to the provision of high-quality early childhood programs and early intervention services in natural environments. In their early years, children exist within a web of relationships among parents, teachers, and other caring adults in their lives, and eventually peers. This web supplies the context within which healthy social-emotional growth and the capacity to form strong affirmative relationships with adults and peers develop. The relationships level of the pyramid includes practices such as actively supporting children's engagement, embedding instruction within children's routine, planned, and play activities, responding to children's conversations, promoting the communicative attempts of children with language delays and disabilities, and providing encouragement to promote skill learning and development. When providing support to very young children and their families within early intervention programs, this level of the pyramid includes developing strong collaborative partnerships with families and other caregivers, providing support to caregivers in responding to the infants and toddlers' needs, and guiding caregivers in establishing responsive and nurturing interactions that will promote the child's social development. The second category of universal promotion practice is the provision of supportive environments. Within home and community settings, this level of the pyramid refers to the provision of predictable and supportive environments and family interactions that will promote the child's social and emotional development. Universal practices for children with or at risk for delays or disabilities include receiving instruction and support within inclusive environments that offer the rich social context that is essential to the development of social skills and peer relationships. The universal level of the pyramid refers to the design of classrooms and programs that meet the standards of high-quality early education and the recommended practices of the Division of Early Childhood of the Council for Exceptional Children. This includes the implementation of a curriculum that fosters all areas of child development, including social and emotional skills, the use of developmentally and culturally appropriate and effective teaching approaches, the design of safe physical environments that promote active learning and appropriate behavior, providing positive and explicit guidance to children on rules and expectations, supporting, guiding, and teaching social skills, and the design of schedules and activities that maximize child engagement and learning. The secondary or prevention level of the pyramid includes the provision of explicit instruction in social skills and emotional regulation. In early childhood programs, all children will require adult guidance and instruction to learn how to express their emotions appropriately, play cooperatively with peers, and use social problem-solving strategies. However, for some children, it will be necessary to provide systematic and focused instruction to teach them discrete social-emotional skills. Children might need more focused instruction on skills such as identifying and expressing emotions, self-regulation, social problem-solving, initiating and maintaining interactions, cooperative responding, strategies for handling disappointment and anger, and friendship skills. Families in early intervention programs might need guidance and coaching from their early intervention provider for how to promote their child's development of targeted social and emotional skills. Families of infants and young toddlers might need guidance and support for helping the very young child regulate emotions or stress and understand the emotions of others. When children have persistent challenging behavior that is not responsive to interventions at the previous levels, comprehensive interventions are developed to resolve problem behavior and support the development of new skills. At this level of the pyramid model, Individualized Positive Behavioral Support, or PBS, is used to develop and implement a plan of intensive, individualized intervention. The focus of this process is the individual design of a behavior support plan that can be applied within all natural environments by the child's everyday caregivers and is focused on supporting the child in developing new skills. The process begins with convening the team that will develop and implement the child's support plan. At the center of the team is the family and child's teacher or other primary caregivers. The next step is to conduct a functional assessment to gain a better understanding of the factors that are related to the child's engagement in challenging behavior. The functional assessment ends with a development of hypotheses about the functions of the child's challenging behavior. These hypotheses are used for the development of a behavioral support plan. The behavior support plan includes prevention strategies to address the triggers of challenging behavior, replacement skills that are alternatives to the challenging behavior, and strategies that ensure challenging behavior is not reinforced or maintained. The behavior support plan is designed to address home, community, and classroom routines where challenging behavior is occurring. In this process, the team also considers supports to the family and strategies to address broader ecological factors that affect the family and their support of the child. The pyramid model offers professionals and programs with a framework of practices that address the skill promotion and intervention needs of all young children, children who may be at risk of developing social-emotional delays, and those with persistent behavioral challenges. On this website, you will find guidance, materials, tools, presentations, family information, and other resources to assist in the installation and sustainable implementation of this approach. We hope that you will consider becoming a frequent visitor to the NCPMI website as we continue to develop and disseminate information and new materials and post opportunities for training and technical assistance.
Hi, Hi, I'm Lisa Swain, and I'm really thankful that you're joining us to learn more about the pyramid model and to find out how it's working in Connecticut. So now that you've heard from Deb Resnick about the Connecticut Pyramid Partnership and a little bit about the history of the pyramid, and you also got to see that overview video, I want to really start getting into what the pyramid is all about. So the goal of the pyramid model is to promote children's success in whatever the environment is. We want children to feel safe and secure. We want the relationships to help children be able to explore and engage. And we also want the relationships to help children regulate their emotions and behavior. So we want to create an environment where every child and every adult feels good about being in that place. And that includes the teachers, the administrators, all of the support staff. And that's one thing about this model. It helps the workforce, which is that base of the pyramid, feel good about being part of the classroom, part of the support for those children. And we are always focusing on a strength-based approach, supporting children to develop the skills they need to be successful. The foundation of the pyramid model is the effective workforce. The foundation for all of the practices in the pyramid model are the systems and policies necessary to ensure a workforce able to adopt and sustain these evidence-based practices. When teachers have the policies, systems, and resources needed to implement the pyramid practices, they are poised to access and utilize all three tiers. So we are going to really focus on what's going on in Connecticut. You're going to hear about a lot of our members who are in different roles in our state and how the pyramid is aligned with all of those different agencies. As you saw in the overview video, this Tier 1 focuses on nurturing and responsive relationships and high-quality supportive environments. It forms the promotion elements of the pyramid model and stresses the importance of establishing positive relationships with children and adults and structuring the environment to support self-regulation. So these relationships are the foundation of the pyramid model. Young children function in the context of relationships early in life, and it sets them on a trajectory for experiencing strong friendships and positive interactions with teachers and children, and it increases their success in school and quality of life. So take a moment to think about how you promote nurturing and responsive relationships before moving on to the next slide. The second part of Tier 1 are those high-quality supportive environments. In this level, young children learn through exploration, and environments should be designed to support that exploration and diminish the chance that children will demonstrate challenging behavior. If they're engaged in these rich learning environments, they will be more apt to be successful. So the environments can prevent challenging behavior while they support children to understand the expectations. And it's important to reflect that these expectations will apply to all children's abilities, cultures, and languages. Especially for kids with disabilities, it's a good idea to ask parents if they have specific ideas to make the environment more accessible for their child. It could be something as easy as them saying that their child needs a chair or a clearly defined space for circle time. because they lack body awareness or have weak core strength. Maybe some students might need lights to be less bright. What are some other things that you can think about maybe supporting an individual child? The second tier further addresses promotion of social competence for some children and targeted interventions for other children who need intentional teaching of social skills. Some children are just going to pick this up naturally, but most children do need some intentional targeted teaching of these skills. In this level of the pyramid model, teachers identify the skills that children need to have to be able to develop friendships. Children enter early childhood classrooms of various abilities based on development, developmental delay, experiences, and cultural expectations. We're going to talk about all of those throughout these modules. In early childhood classrooms, teachers' practices need to include instructional skills to the whole class level, as well as individualized instruction at the child level for specific children. The third tier represents the intervention level of the pyramid model. The emphasis is still on building the child's social competence, but the practices are individualized, frequent, and intense. What are some examples that you can think of right now? Intensive interventions are the third level of the pyramid model, and this represents a data-driven process for developing an individualized support plan for a child who's demonstrating persistent, challenging behavior. Through a team process, data about the child's behavior is collected to make decisions about supports that need to be implemented. Supports could include practices from either of the previous tiers. For example, review of the daily schedule is a tier 1 practice. When it's adapted so that the child has a smaller personal version of the schedule, an adult can individually review this with the child prior to the end of a high preference activity, and then it becomes an individualized intensive intervention. These types of interventions are adapted so that, in this case, a child has a small personal version of the schedule. You'll hear a lot more about different ideas for this. So that is the overview of the 3 tiers. You've seen the video, and now we're going to get more deeply into what are each of the practices at the different tiers. So we're going to focus some more on nurturing and responsive relationships. And over the next several slides, you're going to hear from many of our pyramid partner members, and they're going to talk to you about things that are aligned in Connecticut with the pyramid model, such as the CKCs, the Connecticut core competencies, and also the Connecticut ELVs, which are the early learning and development standards. So I'll meet you back after you've heard from some of our other partners.
Hello, I'm Michelle Levy from the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood. Much of my role at the OEC over the past several years has been related to standards, curriculum, and assessment. My work has ranged from development work to providing guidance to professional development. I'm also a part of the Connecticut Pyramid Partnership, our statewide leadership team focused on implementing the pyramid model across our state. I'm going to tell you a little about the Connecticut Early Learning and Development Standards. Hopefully you're familiar with this document, but if not, that's okay. You're learning about a new resource that can support you in your pyramid work and in other aspects of your work with children and families. The Connecticut Early Learning and Development Standards are sometimes referred to as the Connecticut ELDS, or the CT-ELDS, or even just the ELDS. They include the skills, behaviors, and dispositions that we support young children to acquire. Put simply, the Connecticut ELDS include what we want young children to know and be able to do. These were released in 2013 after a great deal of cross-sector work. They cover young children from birth through age 5. They are research-based and they align to kindergarten standards. I first want to say that all of the pyramid model practices that you're learning about will help to support children's learning and development across all domains. When you implement pyramid model practices, you set the stage for children to be able to learn and build skills. Young children who've been supported to build their social and emotional competence are better able to focus on learning new things and building skills across areas. It works the other way around too. Children who are engaged and learning about things they're interested in are likely to interact with peers more and are less likely to engage in behaviors that might disrupt those activities that they're so interested in. So using both the pyramid model practices and the CT-ELDS can be a great combination. In addition to those big connections, I also wanted to focus on a more specific connection. The Connecticut ELDS include 8 areas of learning and development, one of which is social and emotional development. As you have heard, the pyramid model is focused on building children's social and emotional competence. So what you have in the Connecticut ELDS are the skills that we want to support in order to build that social emotional competence. The pyramid model work provides us with a framework and strategies to build the skills that are included in the Connecticut ELDS. The Connecticut ELDS include these 5 areas, which we call strands, under social and emotional development. We want young children to develop trusting, healthy attachments and relationships with primary caregivers. We want them to develop self-regulation, to develop, express, recognize, and respond to emotions, to develop self-awareness, self-concept, and competence, and to develop social relationships. Each area or strand from the prior slide is broken down even further into learning progressions within the CT-ELDS document. For example, the area of social relationships includes relationships with adults, relationships with peers, and conflict resolution. There are a total of 7 age bands, beginning on the left-hand side with birth to 6 months of age and progressing to the right at 4 to 5 years of age. Within each box, within each column, you will see indicators. Each one builds upon the prior stage, providing a progression of development from left to right. This can be a great tool for considering what skills a child may be working on and planning how you can support them to move to the next stage of development. When using the Connecticut ELDS, it is important to remember that not all children have skills that match up directly to their chronological age. Children's development is uneven by nature, so it's important to think about a child's development in addition to their chronological age. This can be especially true in the area of social and emotional skills. There's often an expectation that children will just naturally develop social and emotional skills when they see other people behaving around them and modeling some skills. But many children need more specific teaching and support. One other important consideration when using the Connecticut ELDS is the significant influence that culture and family has on social and emotional development. When the Connecticut ELDS were developed, there was a great deal of effort to consider this, but it is equally important to consider individual children and families and the cultural context when you work with and use these standards. As the cover of the document states, Connecticut's early learning and development standards were developed to help families, communities, and schools work together to support children's early learning and growth. I encourage you to look through this document. You may want to explore all of the skills you are already supporting. You might find some skills that you haven't focused on as much. Finally, I hope you'll consider how the pyramid model practices you're learning about will help you partner with families to support the skills in the Connecticut ELDS. This document is one of 5 supplements to the Connecticut Early Learning and Development Standards. The series is called Supporting All Children Using the Connecticut Early Learning and Development Standards. This particular document is focused on building meaningful curriculum, and it talks about the components that are important to consider when working to ensure your curriculum process is intentionally planned, is responsive to the individual children and families you serve, and that it involves reflection and ongoing improvement. This document includes many components that are also an important part of pyramid model work. I'm sure you are already doing some of this work. The Using the Building Meaningful Curriculum document and the pyramid model aren't about doing everything different. All of these resources are meant to build on the great things you're already doing and to provide you with a way to think about and continue to improve what you are doing. When you realize something that you're doing isn't working so well for the children and families that you're working with, these resources can help you to shift your practice or incorporate new ideas. Pyramid Model Tier 1 is focused on nurturing and responsive relationships. I'm sure that for you, building relationships with children and families is an important part of your work. You will see the importance of nurturing and responsive relationships in this document as well. As I just mentioned, this document includes components of curriculum. Each of those little rectangles on the cover represents one component, and there's a section in the book dedicated to each area. I wanted to point out that 2 components that align directly to Tier 1 of the pyramid model are supportive interactions and family engagement. When you're thinking about Tier 1 of the pyramid model, this isn't all new work. This can be about tweaking and improving the work you're already doing, as I mentioned. You might supplement how you engage families around your curriculum, building in more strategies to exchange information about social and emotional development. Your plans to build strong and nurturing relationships might also be reflected in your curriculum plans as you consider the strategies that you use to build and support learning across all areas of development, including those important social and emotional skills. This pyramid model training will help you with strategies, and this document can also be a resource. One example of what's included in this book is a range of teaching strategies, from acknowledging and modeling to providing more specific direction. This document also discusses the importance of matching these strategies to an individual child's needs and temperament. I would also add that these range of strategies might vary across cultures and individual family styles. Knowing and understanding this can help you continue to partner with families and build those nurturing and responsive relationships.
Hi friends, my name is Marina Rodriguez, and I work at a nonprofit organization that's community-based, All Our Kin, that supports and sustains community childcare educators to ensure that children and families have the foundation they need to succeed in school and in life. And the pyramid model is really important to us. We believe in the pyramid model. One of the values that are dear to us and we exhibit in our interactions with adults is relationships first. In relationships, children grow and thrive. In some relationships, children also are hindered. So adults that work with children that have a keen self-awareness, that have done a lot of work in themselves to understand who they are and where their emotions come from, are truly important for children to develop a healthy sense of themselves. What do children do when they don't have social emotional skills? This is what it's all about. It's all about fostering a wellness of emotion in children so that they can self-regulate, they can create friendships, and they can later on in life hold a job, something that all of us as adults need to really exist in the societal structures that we operate under. So this is what it's all about. When children don't have these social emotional skills well developed, and some folks might call them soft skills, they often exhibit behaviors that feel challenging to adults. So we must focus on teaching these skills. And teaching these skills, to me, means that I show up in a way that is healthy and comfortable for the child. If I am modeling self-regulation, thinking, pausing, then I am exhibiting these healthy social emotional skills for children. So that's one way of helping children understand social emotional skills. When children are really small, they need an adult to help them regulate. So it's important for the adult to be able to regulate themselves, to understand their emotions, and to understand what triggers uncomfortable emotions for them that could be triggered by the child that's right in front of them. And so when an adult has this understanding, when an adult has done this work, they can better be in the relationship with the child that's in front of them that might be exhibiting behaviors that feel challenging for the adult. So these are some of the ways in which we can teach children how to be in the world. There are other specific strategies that you will also learn later on in this presentation. So we teach, if a child doesn't know how to walk, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to ride a bike, we teach. If a child does not know how to read, you got it, teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, what do? We teach or we discipline. Sometimes our go-to is to discipline. And truly what our children need of us is to be with them, to help them understand the emotion that they're carrying at that moment when something's feeling really difficult for them. They really need the adult to be there with them, to help name that emotion for them so that they could develop the language to express what it is that they're feeling at that time and place. Why can't we finish the last sentence as automatically as the others? That's a challenge. It's a challenge for all of us in society. It's a challenge for us to undo some of the programming that's been instilled in us from generations, to behave and to look at behaviors a certain way, to look at behaviors as challenging, to look at behaviors as wanting to fix them. When we get in the thought process of wanting to fix somebody because something feels challenging for us, that's when the clash happens. It's important to be able to understand that and to be with the feeling, even if it feels challenging, to be with the behavior, even if it feels challenging for us, so that we can show the child a different way of approaching that situation. It really begins with us. And now I am going to turn it over to our colleague and friend, Deb Adams.
Hi, my name is Deb Adams, and I'm from the Office of Early Childhood. My primary role there is to organize professional development and technical assistance. for early childhood professionals working with young children and families. And I'm here to give you a little bit of a guide around the Connecticut Core Knowledge and Competency Framework for professionals working with young children and their families. So core knowledge and competencies refer to the expectations for what the workforce should know and be able to do in their role working with and or on behalf of young children or families. So what does that really mean, and who does that really mean? It really means a lot of people. These core knowledge and competencies were built upon the perspectives of education, special education, early intervention, health, mental health, and social service disciplines to address the early childhood workforce that works more closely with children and families birth to 5. So that's a lot of roles. It's not just teachers in the classroom, which a lot of people think. It's actually mental health consultants where appropriate. It's social work. It is teachers in classrooms. It's birth to 3 professionals. Anyone who really touches the lives of young children and families. These core knowledge and competencies were built on a set of guiding principles and core beliefs. And these guiding principles and core beliefs were actually reviewed and taken a lot from the New York core knowledge and competencies. The core knowledge and competencies for Connecticut were developed by a whole host of folks and a lot of documents from multiple states. And so we really did borrow a lot from other states and research. One of the guiding principles of practice that we look at is to build productive and reciprocal partnerships for children, families, and communities, recognizing that children are best understood in the context of their family, culture, and society. And we think that really kind of is overarching for anybody working with young children and families. A lot of our core beliefs align very well with what the pyramid model and good social and emotional development subscribes to. You know, the family is where children gain their first experience in life and is the most prominent and continuing influence in a child's life. That's one of the core beliefs built from this core knowledge and competency framework. All families and all children and their families, regardless of their racial or ethnic origins, value systems, faiths, abilities, customs, languages, and compositions must be equally respected and deserving of the opportunity to succeed. And we know every human being is unique, with diverse modes of learning and expression, as well as experiences, interests, and strengths. So we also know that children are social beings who need to be engaged in meaningful relationships. Relationships really are a key to this entire document and align, again, very well with what the pyramid model and social emotional development subscribes to. This entire core knowledge and competency framework has parts of the Center on Social and Emotional Foundations for Early Learning documents, like the inventories of practices. A lot of the principles of the pyramid model are woven throughout every domain of this document. In fact, Section 2, which is about using developmentally effective approaches for facilitating experience, 21 of the items in that sections are based on the social and emotional work from the pyramid model. Again, it's woven throughout every single one of the domains in the document, but especially in Section 2, using developmentally effective approaches, is where it is most prominent. And I'm going to give you a few examples of where that shows up in Section 2. It's also in Section 1, which is child development. But Section 2, it's so prominent. So, for instance, in part of the shared core, which is for everybody working with young children and families, here are a few examples of how this comes out. Understands strategies for positive child behavior and supports. That's really basic. That's the actual first item in Section 2. Recognizing children need to adapt to new situation and how children do that. Everyone should know and understand appropriate strategies to support positive behavior. Everyone should know and be able to foster the ability to adapt to new situations, helping children to be able to do that. Everyone should use a framework to plan engaging experiences that foster critical thinking. And everyone should encourage positive interactions with the environment and with others, peers, family, and children, to support collaborative learning. This document truly does weave much of what the Center on Social and Emotional Foundations for Learning believes and understands about the role of relationships, families, and the role of every adult working with young children and families and what they need to know and be able to do. The core knowledge and competency framework used in Connecticut provides the basis for professional development design. Our higher education institutions are using this document in order to look at their coursework and determine whether or not some of these competencies are part of the foundation of their coursework. We use it with students in higher education to test and assess whether or not they come in with a lot of these beliefs about young children, whether or not they come in to courses understanding what they should know and be able to do. And we are able to adapt the coursework in such a way to make sure that we meet that student where they are, just like we do for young children. So I'm happy to have brought to you today a little bit of an explanation of the Connecticut Core Knowledge and Competency Framework for professionals working with you very much.
So we've been talking quite a bit about forming those close, nurturing, responsive relationships with children. And this is a good time to really reflect on the messages we are sending to children. So I would like it if you could spend a little time now, and you can pause and write down some specific positive messages that you want children to know you are sending them. You can start by generating a list of possible messages you want to send to children. The messages should communicate to children how valuable they are to you, how committed you are to them, and write them as if you are speaking directly to children. So, for example, the one I put to the left, I want you to feel safe and secure so that you will be able to explore. So if you'd like now to pause and take some time to think about your own specific messages for children. And then also, when you come back, think about what behaviors you're going to demonstrate to communicate that message. So if you had the example I used, I want you to feel safe and secure so that you will be able to explore. What is going to be a way that you show them concrete behaviors? So maybe it's that you're aware of the physical environment, including the temperature and the lighting, the noise level, and the smells, and adapting them to meet the individual needs of the children. Maybe it's that you move quickly and calmly to respond when an infant cries and expresses discomfort, and you want them to know that you're right there so that they can feel safe and secure, and then they'll be able to explore. So it can be really helpful to think about what are our most essential messages to children and how are we conveying those messages with our concrete behavior. We're going to take a little breath break now on the next slide, so you'll have time to do this activity about your essential positive messages.
Hi, my name is Corinne, and today I have my friend Scout here with me. And we're going to teach you the brave breath. So let's start by standing nice and tall, rolling the shoulders back and down. And this breath can also be done seated. So let's close our eyes And relax the muscles in the face, relax your jaw and your upper body, and just begin to connect with your breath. So take a slow, deep breath in and a slow, deep breath out. Inhaling, feeling the belly rise, and exhale, feeling the belly fall. And then we're going to take our hands and place our hands on our belly. And inhale, feel the belly rise, and exhale, feel the belly fall. So you just place your hands on the center of your belly, one on top of the other, just like that. Great. Inhale, the belly rises, and exhale, the belly falls. So just envision filling your belly just like a balloon. It inflates and deflates. And remember that the belly is just rising and falling just like a balloon, rising above all things, just like you when you're courageous and rising above all things that challenge you. And that's it. Just wiggle your fingers, and when you're ready, open your eyes. Good job. Thank you, and that's the brave breath.